Aloha, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Re-Evolution podcast, and I am joined today, as I hit record, by Elana Mehta. And this is really exciting. This has been a long time coming, I would say. I was just speaking with Elana about how we met, or how I first heard about her earlier in this year. She reached out to me after being tagged in one of my videos about
10 to 15 times.
Yeah, about, the changing masculine paradigm. And she was inviting me to her event, Wild Vessel, which I was super interested in and honored that you had reached out about that. But unfortunately, I was going to Costa Rica to meet a lot of the tribe we're actually here with now. So
another amazing experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And trusting that the full circle would happen and that we would come back into connection, into alignment. And so this is really exciting for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Same.
Yeah. So how you feeling right now? Like, what's just most present or alive for you?
I feel just so here and available for the love that's gonna get to be shared between you and I, and to share with everybody who's listening.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, this is actually the first in-person podcast I'm recording.
Wow.
So you have the honor to
This
be
is
the
the first time I'm on social media in 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's get right into that. Let's just follow the fast energy, because I know you've been living up here in Boulder.
Yeah.
I guess since Collective Legacy, huh?
Since mid-September.
Wow.
I went into a cabin in the woods up Sunshine Canyon, and I thought that I'd be there for a month, and it turns out that there's a bigger plan, so I'm going to be there until the end of February.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so powerful, like the power of nature and solitude.
Just pulled me in. Stay.
So I know you've been really active on social media in the past, and I was following you before you reached out, because I used to be near Venice and that kind of tribe, and your name came up a lot about 2 years ago. But yeah, what the 5 months offline? Talk about that.
I went through, and still am, it's a never-ending process, right? Of just shifting. And Wild Vessel, there was immersive experiences designed to empower the feminine in all genders, knowing that to empower the feminine is actually about restoring the balance with the masculine and feminine dynamics. And after producing unbelievable sold-out events with 200 women and 50 men, and just giving it everything that I had, after our event in February, I started to feel, I was like, if I don't let this all stop right now, I feel like she's going to eat me alive.
Wow.
And I also birthed her. She came in through an orgasm in February of 2017. And then I pitched it to the women's circles that I was hosting on a weekly basis for over a year. And the women were like, let's do this. So it was a passion project for all of us. And we'd have, sometimes 50 women in the living room where we're just like, let's create this experience. And we just built so much energy. I just felt like the orgasm came to the community. It was like vroom, vroom. Whoa. And it really was this 9 months later, we had our first event. Whoa. So this whole birthing cycle. So it really was this, for everyone, a passion project. For me, it was like a child. And I just saw that it wasn't fully sustainable in the way that I was holding it compared to everything else. I was like, this all gets to happen. But the woman that I am holding this is going to be different. And I'm not her right now. But I get to be her. Because I get to be in my highest integrity, to trust myself, unwavering, even if I don't fully know something around investing, entrepreneurial endeavors. And, I am an entrepreneur, but there's always so much to learn, especially when people are hungry to implement their ideas into a vision, right? And then that vision and translating it into physical form. There's so many people that have their ideas, and I was so influenced because I was just like, I need help, right? And with that, I just started letting everything go. And I actually will share that right after the event. In March, I went to Bali for a women's retreat, and I literally fell to the knees in front of my sisters because I could see that I was not operating from my highest integrity and authenticity. And it was like, oh, so painful.
Humbling.
And it was one of those things where I felt almost like spiritually judged by them, because I was like, I'm holding a lot. Fucking see that and support me, you know? Sorry that I'm like, my prayers and rituals aren't aligned. I'm like holding shit for us to like amplify. Yeah. And, you know, like I could have gone that direction, but truly, like my sisters were holding me accountable and high, because they know who I am. And they're like, we know who you get to be. And in reflection, a month, like coming back, that whole month, everything just started to shift. I moved out of living with my partner at the time that I was with for 2.5 years. I moved out. I thought I was like, I just need my own space. 2 weeks later, that relationship ended. Wow. I decided to completely stop Wild Vessel, like chop the head off. I was like, for both of us to live, this has to die. Yeah. And that full cycle. Right. So trusting all of that. And Wild Vessel is coming back at Esalen in May. Is our first.
Oh, beautiful. So there's a rebirthing happening.
There's already a rebirth, like she's there. And what else? Yeah, stopped Wild Vessel, stopped Meta Method, and then I actually even moved out of LA. And
you had been there for what, 2-3 years?
2.5 years.
2.5, wow.
Exactly. And then I also stopped posting on social media. I went to Europe for a friend's wedding. I thought I'd only be there for a week. Ended up staying all summer. Cracked my head open in Ibiza, and that was the last post that I did. So there's so many people like, are you okay? Like, you ended your relationship, you cracked your head open, and now you're not posting? I'm concerned. Wow. And it's so sweet, and I love it. And it's just like to kind of really feel like I'm giving myself the gift to actually deepen into the shadow now. Knowing how much of my true depth and happiness comes from that place. And this topic around the feminine, like for me to not go there all the way, to not fully embody my wild vessel, to not tap into the elements the way that I know my truth is. And that's what the Meta Method is a dance of the elements. And I feel like I've been operating deep codes from a superficial place. And when I say superficial, I don't mean even so much, sure, it can be egotistical, fine, whatever. But I feel it's just almost, there's been so much noise around me that I actually haven't gotten to bite and sink my teeth into the true essence of who I know I am until this moment in my life.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Like I can feel the power of like this like full circle you're expressing, and you know I can relate a lot from the masculine side from this year in particular. The radical business uncouplings, like massive deepening of the work, especially in our community. And you know I want to extract the theme here. I think it's really powerful. We get downloads of a mission that's big, right? Which is Wild Vessel for you, Meta Method, all the stuff you're doing.
Now a book.
And the book is the next one, okay. So we get the mission orders from Spirit, whatever you want to call it, and then we create that. But when we create that, right, especially when it gets as much momentum as I know your work was getting, it starts like feeding back and creating you. You've created a mirror and a vortex of energy that to truly live out, you cannot be untransformed by it. And it sounds like yours has come into the spiral of Titans, and it demanded integrity, it demanded sounds like a slowing down, a reintegration, a reconsolidation, because I know as an entrepreneur as well, once we get into all the things, we want to do all this stuff, and there's events and there's online stuff, and it can kind of spiral really quickly.
And what are we listening to? How do we tune our listening to actually be receptive to the things that are really guiding us in translating that vision? Because there's also so much noise around that may look similar to it, that may have the similar jargon and the shiny spiritual materialistic properties. But yeah, totally. It's so important to, I think, when we are not actually operating from alignment anymore, and we can feel ourselves almost leading it rather than it leading us.
Right. That's so important. It's like paradoxically, when something gets really big, the surrendered leadership and embodiment is the most important.
Totally.
Because if we're trying to like control it and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep moving it forward, that's when the burnout can happen. And I can so relate with my own work this year, especially. I was pushed off a cliff into the men's work and into that. And yeah, this summer I also burned out, went offline, injured myself, uncoupled, like went through the whole.
Yeah, what side of your body?
The burning left side, my left foot. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I can so resonate with what you're saying. And, you know, I want to peel back some layers here, because the title of this over on Facebook is The Wild Feminine. And this is very synchronistic, because just the other day I was speaking to a brother, Mark Usher, about the wild masculine and the difference between, he drew a really beautiful parallel that I want to hear your take on, between the wild and the savage masculine. And I imagine there's a similar...
John talks about that.
Right. Right. And I imagine there's a similarity in the feminine, where like a wild man is in connection with his emotion and raw power and nature, which is the feminine within him. Whereas the savage man, though he's wielding a lot of power, is actually from a place of disconnection, because it's just like, hey, I'm just going to make money. I'm just going to mate. I'm just going to like fight, you know? And I think in our culture, we're seeing a lot of the savage play out, especially in politics, especially on the mainstream. And so I think for a lot of men, you know, this is what's happening. And I've seen in all the men's work this year I've been blessed to be involved in, is either men who never went to the savage and so became impotent, reconnecting to the heart, becoming rewilded, or the savage men, the ones that were successful in the more toxic paradigm, understanding that that's not serving them or their women or their friends or their work. So I would love to hear about your take on that, because I know you're in touch with the feminine side of this.
It's beautiful. Thank you for bringing this up. So the language that I use is protector, predator, or passive. And it's not about any of them being right or wrong, but it's being in a place of operating from choice. Do I have the emotional intelligence, the primal intelligence, the cognitive force to actually drive myself to own and fully embody being a protector? Do I know what that is? Where I'm not protecting myself, but I'm so... there's a chapter in a book called Selfish versus Self-Centered. Selfish is where my energy is ish, kind of inward and outward, where self-centered is I'm actually centered, so my energy can face out.
Yes.
And that's the protector of like where I'm, right, protector versus rescuer or savior. So I would say savage, rescuer, savior, like that is kind of in the same triangle.
Right.
Where the protector, I feel, is taking responsibility of protecting oneself, but from not a place of fear, but ownership and responsibility to then be able to focus out on the sisters and the brothers, and also being a protector of the planet.
Yes.
And so that code actually, and that to me is the wild, like the wild masculine and feminine, or like the protector code. It's also the protector and the nurturer, and playing with those two. Where it's like, and in between that is life and death, like on like that spectrum of being able to hold those true codes.
Wow. So I mean, when I hear protector, I've been working a lot with like transmuting the soldier energy in men, or the warrior energy, to the guardian. Yeah. Which is someone who wields the power of life or death in defense of life itself, instead of using it to accrue or to cut or to like separate from nature. So I think this is like,
and I just, for protector, and you know, I was definitely playing with guardian versus protector for a while, and what I loved about just feeling the power of a protector, it feels pro, it's like for something, and also it feels like as a protector, I'm choosing to step in, like actively step into this role. And I also then feel like there's more of an anthem almost as us being protectors. We also have like Chichescott with the Earth Guardians and those homies. They're amazing. And I love that. It's like, it's this pulse. And I feel like the codes around what it means to be a protector and actually take the ownership and responsibility to be stewards of this planet is essential for all of us to actually commit to something greater and to see and understand as a framework of like, this is what a protector is. This is what it means. and almost like reclaim that word for ourselves.
Yes.
And, you know, we have jargon, so why don't we use our jargon to our favor and really cultivate a language that we can all live by, and then hold each other high and accountable. Like, are you showing up as a protector or not? One example I want to say is one of my dear friends, love him, and he wasn't acting as a protector in the community, and he was not invited to the first wild vessel. And I said, like, this is the community based on standards that we've just created of an experience where there's no one person that you can point a finger at.
Right.
We're literally a collective holding values, shared values that we know you hold too, that you're not in integrity with. So your way of experiencing Wild Vessel is by not coming. And we'd love you to work on yourself however you want, do whatever you want, no attachments to what you decide to do. But we'd love to have you.
Right.
And he came to the next event.
Wow, beautiful.
It's beautiful.
You got invited up or called up.
Call forward.
Yes. Wow.
And that's the thing, right? Not calling each other out, but calling each other forward. So we get to move the energy.
Yes. I love all the threads you're tying in here. One is the creation of a new language. Whatever the new paradigm, new emergence that we're in, very much, it is about language. For me, language is a front line.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of calling up, it's calling in, or calling up instead of calling out, calling forward. I love that too. And I think what you're speaking to is very powerful. Like, and this is something I'm going to carry forward from this conversation, is the being proactive, protecting. Whereas a guardian, I see maybe holding or guarding, and that is actually a very powerful meme.
Totally. Maybe that's the protector nurture kind of quality.
Yes, I think so. And something else I wanted to go in on here. I mean, there's so many places we could go, but I really think this one's important, and that is what's happening right now between the masculine and feminine, especially because with men and women I've worked with and talked to, there's a lot of confusion in the collective, because women, I know you've been involved with this for a while, have been gathering in more and more women's circles, red tents, goddess collectives, like the upsurgence of that is getting really strong. And, you know, then we have Me Too, and we have the media and the political stuff that's erupted in the past 16 months. And I would just love your take, having been early on, you know, over 2 years ago, already gathering, like you're saying, like 50 women at a time, and going in on these issues. You know, what do you see happening right now in the collective? And, you know, I know you've been in your process, but as you jump back into the work and you re-embody,
the work is always here.
It's always there. I'm meaning more like the public,
totally.
Like, you know, you as a facilitator.
Yeah.
What's your take on the current, like, state of affairs?
If I could share with the women what our thing is to work on, and the thing for the men to work on,
Sure.
whether it's together or apart, for the women it's forgiveness, and for the men it's responsibility. Because I think the women, and why women feel called to gather without men right now, is because of the safety women are desperately desiring to feel, to actually even tap into the wild woman. Because there's so much perfectionism that women are having to deconstruct to actually get to the deeper depths and roots of who they are in their messiness, in the untethered wild feminine, and feeling safe to reveal that. And if men are not in a space taking responsibility of the past generations that have come before them, to also being in that protector state and understanding that from an embodied standpoint and trusting yourself, like living in a body that you as a man trust, knowing where you stand, where you don't stand, how to stand for yourself, how to stand for others, and being able to like tap into the energies of all of those quadrants. That I feel like is this energetic space that women truly need to actually unleash the feminine, which I feel like for men to see the unleash of the feminine, to me the feminine is like the life. Yes. So I'm working with I'm all about word plays right now and reclaiming our language through our words. So using the masculine and feminine, I've been using life force. Life being the feminine, force being the masculine. And right now we live in a patriarchal structure where we're using so much force and we're actually extracting from life. So how can we actually be in integrity to know who we are with cultivating life and also cultivating our force, knowing that both of them need to be practiced separately, but also it is essential for them to come back together.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of challenges around, is this a gender thing? Is this an energy thing? Because there's so many women that are desperately craving the feminine. I think there's men that also really want to see the feminine fully free,
Yes.
especially free in themselves, so that men actually can tap back into their masculine. But I feel like without the codes of the feminine being like strapped into the medicine bundle or the tool belt, or like having that sword before you go into battle, like think of a man like having like a woman, or having that feminine, having life behind him as he goes to the battlefield. Like the life that is in him to charge that force is so much more stronger and visceral, because then you have like a compass, you have life breathing into you to actually trust what you're choosing to penetrate into the world.
Come on.
Which is why it's so important for like men don't stay so much also in the feminine, because I'm seeing men becoming soft because there's so much fear around the actual attributes of what it means to be in the masculine, because there's not that many role models that are actually accessing both life and force in a place that is taking full responsibility and ownership and then penetrating them out into the world.
Well, we're getting mega codes here, family. This is big, and I love that, life and force, because masculine and feminine, every time I use this, and like I try to bring it to yin and yang, I'm like a huge Taoist nerd, people get so tripped up on that, and they get stuck in male-female bodies, and it bypasses the conversation. But what you're speaking to is potent, because the masculine can be seen as the force, the penetrative ability to affect the world, and then women embodying life itself, they're the creatrix. And as a warrior, as a man, as a guardian protector, and this is for all men, you know, if you don't have the force united with life, then you're playing with half a deck. And there's actually a deadness there, right? There's a block.
Think of a seed without the sun. It's just going to stay in the ground. It's life. It's not going to grow. Right.
And like forgiveness and responsibility, I want to return to that. Like that just like clicked something for me, because sitting with a lot of men, I was really blessed to be at Sacred Sons recently, and just sitting in circle with men. So many men are lost right now, where they're the woman in their life, whether they're married or they have a girlfriend, she's powering up, and she's activating this wild part of her. She's sitting with women, and these guys are just lost. They're lost because they're like, I don't know how to relate to her anymore. They're trying to take responsibility. They want to like be that masculine force. And their tool belts are just not adequate. They're finding it hard to meet. And then, you know, it was really eye-opening for me, because how much divorce and uncoupling was the only like pathway left, because they didn't have a way to reconnect. And so I'm really dedicated on my mission now to rediscover these tools, play with a full deck, get men that, you know, a lot of men are in need of emotional catharsis in the feminine because they've been cut off from it. And I think in the conscious community, some men have activated their feminine to a point where they've lost the power to stand in that force. And then there's this like passivity or impotence that comes in. Meanwhile, the wild feminine is just getting stronger.
She'll just bite his head off.
Bingo. The Kali, just like
completely
decapitate. And so what I see emerging in this new life force culture is full protectorship from the masculine. So the feminine is safe to forgive, like the past, like we have generations of trauma to move through, and we get to move through it. And we get to create like a new economy, a new dating structure.
I'd even say, and also like reclaiming our codes around the predator, like to trust like that part of ourselves, like also especially as men to trust. I'm an intimacy coach, so one of the things that, and I work with men specifically, is called like fuck kill consciousness, where our ability to fuck like and our ability to kill, like they're right next to each other. And to know that that's, as a man, to know that that's inside you, but not to trust that instinctual nature, actually be afraid of it, and therefore it be expressed more with like porn addiction, or like needing to like release energy very quickly and not actually letting yourselves get to like the deeper depths of where that energy is coming from. I feel like it is trusting your ability to fuck and kill, but like who are you all the way down there, and reclaiming those codes of like, I fuck. And like, I fuck because I'm a protector. Like, I will kill because of this.
Yes.
And like, to reprogram yourself from that seed so you can actually be in connection with your intuitive, instinctual nature. To know that when you are the predator, when you're like going to something,
right.
You're not afraid of that. You're not afraid of your force actually being out into the world of like, oh, is this too much in the space? Let me sit back.
Right.
And it really is also the power of like the ability to listen.
Yes.
Which I think actually frees us to know how to like really penetrate our energy out into the world.
I mean, I've been working a lot with the masculine archetypes, right? Yeah. And I feel like the one that's most offline is the warrior. If we do king, warrior, lover, magician, because the predatory energy you're speaking of, the hunter, I always think of it like the hunter, right? It's very objective based. Like, I'm going to go complete an objective. Maybe I'm going to hunt a game, or I'm going to hunt a woman, right? That's that penetrative, like, fuck energy. Totally. You know, so many men, and I've uncovered this in myself painfully this year, is like, we're afraid of it. We've been afraid of it because the examples of it out in the world are hyper unrealistic, and like there's like where the hyper masculinity, the pornography plays in here, the militaristic, like I talk about as the soldier, which is kind of like the disconnected hunter who's more like a machine, and it's not
taking
like
the soul out,
right? And there's no life there. There's just pure force that is metallic and cold, and it's not serving life. And so part of my mission, and I'm really blessed to be in this stream, is to reclaim that and help us reclaim more of that hunter predator, like the predator. It is a predator, you know. And I love big cats. I always like channel my lion tiger, because that's a loving energy, but it's also very sharp. It's very direct, and the degree to which men can reclaim and reharness that, not only are they going to be more potent in business, in life, in community structures, but women are very attracted to that. And this is, you know, I love like the intimacy polarity dance is like, I've been heavily in that this year. And a lot of men are not understanding why their women are leaving them, or why they're not in intimacy, because these women are starved for that grounded predator energy, right? Yeah,
fully. This is all what my book is about, by the way. And
it's the working title.
Oh, the title and everything is there, and I'm not sharing it.
Fair enough.
I'm not sharing it yet. But it is about the way in which we're penetrating our energy onto the world in a sexual context, to also reclaim to our sexual energy and that life force that is coming all the way from our root, pulling up, and then gets vibrated out into the world. And if we are operating our sexual channel from our shame, from our guilt of unworthiness, not being good enough, not deserving, all of that, and that is even in there in the subtle way, like, we can feel it. It is clear, whether we think that people can see it, feel it, or not. Like, once we're starting to tap into our senses and our sensuality, and it's a lot of women are really going down that path, and men too, but it's like, to enhance our senses and be receptive to these things, it is so important that we that we really start taking responsibility of the way that we're fucking life in all the ways.
All the ways, yes. Yes, this is fight, fuck, or freeze. It's in our DNA, and it comes from that primal, ancestral, like animalistic side. And this is really important, and I want to tie this in here. It's coming up for me with technology. Technology is beautiful. It allows a lot of awakening, a lot of spreading of beautiful codes through silicon and screens. And there's a way where it disembodies the fight, fuck, or freeze, where it's a mental concept only. And I think this is really fresh for you, having been in a social media hiatus, being in nature. Sounds like being in a creative zone. You know, what is your take on right relationship with the digital?
To include the body, right? The tech is force, and it's also energy shooting up. Like, our tech is going all the way up to building satellites in the sky. It's like, what is the tech that we're using going down? Because the tech that we're using down is pulling and extracting resources. So the way that we're fucking down is not so much in the way that we're actually giving our life force in a way that is self-serving us and the planet.
Right.
So how are we using our fuck going up and going down? And right now we're not giving a lot of fuck going down. And let's also associate that to, right, we got the sky and the earth. But what about our bodies? Because we're shooting it up to our minds, but how much are we actually shooting down into our bodies? And this is also the thing where I've been unlocking codes around primal intelligence, that it's actually a forgotten intelligence, because there's multiple intelligences, 9 right now. It's like rhythmic, spatial, interpersonal, intrapersonal, mathematic, rhythmic, emotional, right, cognitive. Like there's all these different intelligences. And I feel like the primal intelligence, our instinctual nature, who are we under pressure? Are we in fuck, freeze, or flight, like you mentioned?
Right.
And I think for us to be able to, like I said before, to live in a body that we trust, of who am I under pressure? Who am I if shit hits the fan? And to know that primal intelligence and have those codes, whether I trained that part of me like through martial arts, through dance, through some sort of kinesthetic connection to my body or to the planet, like they are very similarly one of the same.
Yes.
And we are a technology. We're the greatest technology that the earth has ever created. We have brains that are the most advanced brains of the earth's intelligence. She is evolving, and we are her greatest creation, in the sense of our brain is the senses. She holds the senses: fire, water, earth, and air. That is our senses that connect to our brain. We don't just see, it stores information into our brain.
Right.
And like, if you think about the technology that is right here, to also not, as we expand, to forget the other life force that doesn't necessarily have the senses and the brains that we do, where it's almost overpowering and creating a superiority in comparison to all other life forms.
Right.
And so I feel like to use our technology to start going down and recognizing the other voices that are here, the energies that are seen and unseen, that is the most important thing that I believe that we can do with the technology that is stored right between our ears.
Wow, you're transmitting some mega codes right now, and I'm so grateful for you. This is huge. Like there's something you're speaking to that's really deep. It's like directionality, and it's super meta. It's like, because you're right, like a lot of the tech is an upward force, right? In the body, it's like put everything in the prefrontal cortex. I'm speaking just in generalities. Yeah. It's putting all the waves, right? Electromagnetic radiation, it's all up and out. You know, we have 5G towers getting installed in the US right now, in Europe. Yeah. And it's the carbon. The carbon's all going up because of combustion engines and technology. Yeah. And so, you know, you hear a lot about this, like putting the carbon back in the soil. We have to renew the soil of the planet.
Just
if we want
6 inches, right, the first layer of soil, and we could solve so much of the carbon.
I know. We want our children to eat the most healthy food.
Do we actually? Do our ideas or like good intentions actually meet our actions? Right. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, of like also going back to the men with like the warriors. What are you a fucking warrior for? Right. What are you a stand for? The intentionality of knowing your purpose, knowing your mission, and doing the work to actually know that, and then to actually live as an embodied example of that, are 2 totally different things.
Yes.
So intentionality, to me, if it's not action, it's a good idea.
Right.
You know, but once intention is into action, then we actually start to produce the results we want in the world. And I think a lot of people are terrified for some reason. I have my theories. To actually create the world that we want to see. So we have like, am I doing something around like making sure that those 6 inches of soil are in the ground? In some ways, yes, absolutely. And I love that, like even here when I know that I'm doing so much, the excitement of knowing I get to do more.
Right.
Not that like, oh, I should be. No, I get to. And I'm on that path because I'm committed to it. And my intentionality is deeply seated there. And to be able to sit back in that intention and let myself lean into how that's unfolding, into being in my discernment and also surrendering to how it's all moving. It's like, I know I'm doing that. It's like, are we all really clear on making sure that maybe we're not like lifting the dirt, but we are truly sharing the same actualization?
Yes. And this is combining life with force.
Exactly.
The surrender with discernment.
Who are we being, and then what are we doing with who we're being to get the results that we want to have?
And are we attached to a specific result? This is a big code I've been receiving in Boulder recently is
this is huge.
Everything's speeding up.
Yeah.
Like you can feel, you can call it time dilation or time compression.
Yeah.
Because time is this field we're in, right, as human beings, and we perceive it, and it seems to be one of the primary elements of being, right? You're speaking to the earth elements, but we also have like the akasha, ether, space, time.
Well, so the meta method is the dance of the elements. So
Right.
dance fire, water, earth, and air, to be in the center, which is the meta, which is the time and space.
Yes.
To be in a place of center, of choice, to know when to activate my fire, water, earth, and air. Meta also stands for an acronym as mastering, evolution, technique, and awareness. So everyone finding their own technique to cultivate their own self-mastery and watching your awareness of your evolution expand from sitting in that place.
Yes. I mean, regenerating the earth by standing in being and holding an intention, as we spoke earlier in your journey, and I can relate in mine as well, of once we're putting that intention into action with a whole heart as a predatory fucking existence, fighting for something that we actually believe we should stand for, right? Not just fighting, not just being in war, and then letting that shape us, because that's where the surrender comes in. Once we're walking the earth with this force you're talking about that's connected to life, a process starts that's older than us, right? And that's the older intelligence. And so, hearing your journey early on to bring this full circle, that process can shape us in ways we didn't even know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where the body comes in. That's where this downward energy, I think that could be maybe the most golden thread we touched on here, is the downward energy is the one that's out of balance.
Yeah,
and that's
going
the
up and
environment.
out, down and in.
That's the environment. It's sexuality.
And it's the feminine.
Yes, and it's the feminine.
And it's the feminine. It's about her. It is about the way in which we're connecting to her. We could go so deep into it, but I can't wait to share this book with you and everyone that's tuning in here, because it is all about the way in which we're penetrating our energy going down. And one thing I will say, because the book, the title, the fuck is in the title, by the way.
Perfect.
So I've been seeing fuck as an equation. Fuck equals life multiplied by force. Right? So I said this earlier, if we're fucking with force, then we're just extracting from life. And if we're fucking with just so much life and not any force, we're not really getting anywhere in the world. There's not much momentum. And fuck also means essentially to create. So we're a bunch of fuckers, a bunch of creators.
Bunch of motherfuckers.
Bunch of motherfuckers, right? But how are we motherfucking her?
Right.
Are we doing it with intentionality? Are we doing it as protectors? Are we actually fucking her and giving to her without any attachment? Because she's giving to us with nothing needed in return.
Right.
But can we do that the same way when we go down? Or how is our energy fucking her going down?
Yes.
Because right now it's extracting.
Right.
And it's pulling. And there's a lot of shame when we go down there back to our mother. And so to be a bunch of fuckers means that we'd be a bunch of creators. And to be creators of our life would be a terrifying thing. Because that means we'd have to take responsibility.
Full responsibility.
Of everything that's happening in and everything that's happening out. And with that, it's also, if I choose to take responsibility of my life, I'm taking responsibility of life. And the framework of taking responsibility of life is also that by choosing that, I'm also choosing death. And we don't have a clear relationship with death. Therefore, I think a lot of people are afraid to actually live because of the fear factor around our relationship to death.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Next level shit. We have birth doulas. We're the death doulas. Why do we hide from death in the West? I mean, this is a whole nother
thread.
thread.
A whole other thread. That's why I don't even want to go into the motherfuckers
you're
thing.
touching
it's
on
the whole thing.
You're touching on mega topics here, and if you're afraid to die, you're afraid to live. That's just equal and opposite exchange, right? And if you're afraid to fuck, you're also afraid to live. That's what's funny. Because it's if you're afraid to die, it's you don't want to create out of fear of the consequences. Yeah. And then it's the opposite.
That's right, the fuck kill consciousness. It is that.
Right.
It's
the life and death here. Wow. There's just some mega polarities emerging in this conversation.
It's all polarity. So the word plays, I'll share some of the chapter pieces with you. Is I said the one selfish versus self-centered, protector versus predator, feminine not feminism, sensuality versus sexuality, and playing with these a gentleman versus a gentleman.
Big.
Right, what are the codes around that stuff. Like a gentleman, like maybe he opens the door for a specific woman. He has great like chivalry. He like has good manners. He knows certain things. It's like, but are you holding those same standards of being a gentleman to men in your life, to other women, to women that you don't want to even sleep with? Are you still holding those same things? Or are you a gentleman when you have motives, when you have an agenda, when you have something attached to it? And really understanding, are these things that you're then putting on a persona to actually portray yourself as something that you're not fully owning in integrity to everything else in your life?
Unintegrated.
Unintegrated.
Yeah. Wow. That's another thread they're touching on, is like this the old masculine paradigm of chivalry, of the gentleman.
Totally.
Of
and
this
where does that even come
cultured-
from? Is that coming from a place
Right.
of empowering women or disempowering women?
Exactly.
Of being weak, or empowering them to actually own other pieces of their strength? So you're like, I got this, so you can fucking like own who you are as your royalty.
Right. That's a big code that's being unraveled right now, I think, for a lot of men. This shows up in the red pill, blue pill community, which I've been observing and researching recently. Is like, I think a lot of men have lost the fuck consciousness and they've hidden in the gentleman. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and one of the
This
things
is
that
being
I
revealed.
continue to ask in the book is, where's your fuck coming from?
Wow.
Because it's all energy. Fuck can be in the most destructive, violent places.
Right.
Fuck can also be in the most blissful, fucking ecstatic places. It actually is one of the most universal words in the world.
It is.
In the way we can use fuck, and it translates through all realms.
It does. I mean, Osho pointed this out. He's like,
Yeah.
the word used to be God, that could be the all, and it's been replaced with fuck in the modern era.
Yeah.
Like, because it can fill every...
It is that powerful, right? Like, and so it like, and to also think about how we've shamed our fuck. That word is inappropriate. That like it's censored wherever we go, right? Both as a word and as a physical act. So there's so much there that you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it's actually our tapped in force to God, to ourselves.
Wow. And that's by design, obviously, on some level, right?
Exactly. So we get to unpackage that and
We get to reclaim fuck fully in our language, in our embodiment, in our sensuality, sexuality, which...
So this all came through, like, the way that Wild Vessel came through with an orgasm, this whole book and fuck came through the same way. I was like, oh, I'm here more than a month. Got it. Okay. We will write this thing.
Wow, thank you for listening to that. Thank you for doing this work, because this is so needed. And I'm curious if you could let us know, when can we expect this artifact?
The dream desire for the launch of the book will be when Wild Vessel comes back, which is May 3rd to the 5th at Esalen. So that'll be the first opening of the book tour.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you've been listening in, I mean, Elana has been in the creatrix of, it sounds like, shadow, fuckery, and a lot of deep codes. And so this is, wow, it's a journey. So May 3rd to 5th at Esalen, Wild Vessel returns, and we can expect this beautiful text. Wow.
I call it the manifesto to being good fucking human.
Nice. So my last question for you, and then I want to wrap here. Is there anything that I could have asked you that I didn't, that you would have really desired? Or like is there a puzzle piece here that has a lot of energy that we didn't touch on?
I truly came in with zero expectations. I feel like as long as we're talking about the fuck and we're getting deep into the root around these topics, which I feel like we did. I mean, there's only so much we can do in a certain amount of time, as well as also translating you and I having a conversation for the first time, pretty much. Yeah. And then also being able to share this with other people. I feel so complete and full and grateful that we, as above, so below it.
Totally.
And so I feel really complete and grateful. Yeah. What about you?
I guess, as I mentioned at the start, this does feel like the first real conversation we've had, and I wanted to speak to you at a collective legacy, but I was in a very raw processing state, so I guess it wasn't meant to happen then. And I'm seeing now like why I was drawn to your work without really even understanding why. It's like we're touching into different areas of the same field and territory, and I just feel super grateful it's happening this way. And I like meeting a woman like you who's on this level of archetypal understanding and just like, fuck yes. It gives me even more hope and intends my fire as a man to like hold my codes stronger, because I'm like, Elana's out there fucking the world and helping others fuck it better. And so I'm like, yeah, I gotta be a motherfucker. The good kind.
The good kind of motherfucker. Fuck yeah, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elana. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, if y'all vibed on this, if you're feeling it, Elana's tagged here. You saw it here first, coming out of social media retirement. Tag a woman in this video, or a man, and share it out to your tribe if you're feeling it. Yeah. We love you, family.
And if you are curious about the book, you can check out my website, elanameta.com, or just go to my Facebook here, send me a little message, and we'll make sure that gets sent to you when it comes out.
It's exciting, y'all. Until next time, stay peaceful. Keep your fuck, fight, and flight right.